Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting. Today is February 8th. We're so glad to have all of you here with us today. So guests and visiting Rotarians, if you are with us virtually on Zoom, please identify yourself in the chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, we ask that you register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. I believe you do not have Pete yet. Tom, do you mind? Jack of all trades.
Didn't know I was singing today, but here we go. We'll sing God Bless America. Are you ready? God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Now join me in pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Tom. Lori Vidal with our invocation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm kind of going in a little bit of a different agenda. We have lost a good friend. You know, we're careful how we say this, but a Rotarian at heart. Every bit a member of this club in every way, except being on the roster. Jimmy Sullivan, who has lived out at Hatchet Creek for years and years, has passed away yesterday, complications from COVID-19. He developed kind of a COVID pneumonia, was in the hospital at Shands for a long time. And, you know, those of us going out to Hatchet Creek, we're kind of keeping updated by his wife, Terry. And Jimmy finally did pass away yesterday evening, so I just want everyone to remember Terry and Jimmy's son in your prayers. I'd be remiss without describing a little bit kind of what Jimmy meant to us. You know, again, kind of, just to me, he kind of epitomizes that caretaker that someone has out on a ranch in Montana or someplace where you're not out there often enough, but you need someone to look after things and someone with the know-how to do so. But he didn't just do that. He also was with us on all these work days, helping us and directing traffic, really, telling us what to do. I mean, just really a true, genuine friend of the club, a dear friend to Wesley Eubank, Matthew Brady, Jason Shank, myself, a lot of us that have been involved with the feast for a long time. I think Jason probably, he gave Ozzy, Jason's son, his first beer, most likely. I mean, that's kind of, that's where Jimmy fits into this club. So really, when I say that, I really want everyone to just remember Terry in your thoughts and prayers. And when the time's right, we're going to do something for her. So I'm going to ask us to have a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
With that prayer request, let's join our hearts together to pray. As I walk up here this day, I have in these notes to pray for those here today who might be carrying a special need of some kind. And what a joy it is to lift up unspoken prayers and spoken needs to you, Father. We ask you particularly to meet the needs of the Sullivan family. And we ask you to meet each one of us here today at whatever our point of greatest need may be. We thank you, Heavenly Father, that this is the day that you have made, and we want to rejoice and be glad in it. We're so thankful for the potential of a new day that we have to face, even as dreary as it is, and the potential each one of us has within us, because you have made us in your image with the potential to be creative and innovative as people. And we're all facing challenging times, dramatic changes in the way we're called to live our lives and work together. And so many new and different dynamics are stretching every one of us here, requiring us to implement technology into our daily routines that we're not comfortable with. Give us the wisdom and grace we all need to embrace and to encourage creative innovation and change while holding on to timeless dynamics, that which is true and fair and beneficial to all concerned. We pray in your name.
Thank you very much, Laurie. Thank you, Matthew. At this time, those that remain standing would be those who have a visitor or a guest or a visiting Rotarian. Matthew's going to come around.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm Craig Carter. Today, my guest is Albert Reed, and I had the privilege of doing Albert's first commercial real estate deal with him. He's with Keller Williams right now. And Albert asked me, what does this club do? And I got to be honest with you, as I was explaining it, it made me realize how proud I am to sit in this group every day or every Tuesday, because you guys are amazing. To be a small part of it's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Fellow Rotarians, my guest today is my wonderful wife, Karen Thomas.
Welcome, Karen. We're so glad to have you. All right, we're going to go right into announcements. I'm going to ask Wilbur Holloway and Jay to come up and give us an update on the Wild Game Feast.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking mostly to the Zoom people. We need y'all to buy raffle tickets. We're a little behind this year. Please contact me. My information's on the website, or contact Wesley. We will mail them to you and we will bill you. However, we need to get it done. Let's get it done. We've got 3 charities. We didn't raise any money. We didn't raise much money last year because of COVID. So let's make it special this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilbur. Jay is busy actually selling tickets, so we're going to let him come when it's convenient for him. John Gregory, we hear you have a poem for us.
You won't clap when I'm done. This one's called True Valentine. Valentine looks were a fine creation. She really wanted to go on a vacation. She wanted to clench a place with expense. So I took her to a fine gas station. Eubank had nothing against Beth, soon to be a father. I pity old Weth. As Beth started to show, and Weth now did know, that shotgun weddings meant wife or death. Valentine asked, "Do you adore me, my love?" Like she was pulling power from above. He agreed, and she replied, "Die for me?" And he sighed, "No, mine is really an undying love." To the animals who have all departed, for the sake of the feast we have started, a Valentine token, although a bit broken, I guess you could say it's half-hearted. Happy Valentine's Day.
We appreciate it. Okay, Greg, you want to come up and talk about ROI?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm here to make an announcement about a Rotary thing, but before I do that, I just got to say, Jimmy, was special to a lot of us. And the two Jimmyisms that I remember, was full of, Florida wisdom, cracker wisdom, was Greg, and I was carrying something heavy. He goes, Greg, don't pick that up until you know where you're going to put it down. And it was so true because where I was putting it down was full of stuff. The other one was, I think he stole this from Gamble Rogers, was Camel was a horse designed by a committee. That was a Jimmyism. But anyway, what I'm here to announce is the Rotary Leadership Institute, which is something I hope anyone who's looking at becoming a leader in our club or leadership role of some capacity can attend, or even if you're not, you'll learn a lot about Rotary this way. These institute meetings are over close by. We usually carpool. I think this one's over in St. John's River State College in Orange Park. There's a fee. The club will cover a certain level of fees, a certain number of those people. So if you sign up early and say you want your fees covered, the club can carry that. Whatever's budgeted, we can get the number in. That is on Saturday, February 26th. So mark your calendars. Saturday, February 26th. We have breakfast before it starts, and it starts at 8 and goes till 3 p.m. And at 3 p.m. you're out of there. So I hope you can join myself and some others that are already planning on carpooling over. And the other thing real quickly is the Rotary Convention. Just a reminder, that's in Houston this year, and it's June 4th through the 8th, and a number of us already signed up, and I hope you can join us. I know President David and myself are going, and others. So please join us out there in Houston as well. So 2 opportunities to get involved more in Rotary. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Greg. I think at this time, we'll turn the program over to David. Not sure if Jay is, I think he's tied up. So David, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, it's great to see everybody today. Thanks for coming out in this rather rough, damp, bone-chilling cold weather. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information, just kind of let you know what went on last night during our board meeting. I am happy to announce that we had 2 new member proposals. Each of those were approved. Brett Sanders is going to be relocating here from California. Brett is he's proposed by Richard Allen, and he's actually been attending a lot of our meetings via Zoom, so he knows a good bit about the club. A Rotarian from over there. I think he's in the midst of getting his housing set up down in Micanopy. So just be on the lookout for Brett Saunders, new member officially as of yesterday evening. And we also have, thanks to Melanie Shore as his sponsor, Ken Mears, who is the vice president of the commercial division for Thomas Realty. Ken has actually attended our meeting at least once or twice as Melanie's guest, so we're looking forward to getting to know Ken better as our new member. So thank you, Melanie and Richard, for bolstering our membership with 2 good individuals. Okay, another very important order of business last night was the approval of our secretary nominee. And I am really pleased and excited, encouraged to let you know that Ryan Thompson was approved unanimously. Approved unanimously by the board of directors. That's right, Ryan. No dissenters in the whole bunch. We all wanted you. So, but Ryan's going to be great. Careful selection, a lot of due diligence performed there, and really excited about Ryan taking office as secretary on July 1st. He's going to be doing that alongside the 5 new board members that we voted on and we announced via email last week. And if you're here, I'll ask you to please stand up. And Ryan, why don't you go ahead and stand up, please? I think everybody knows you, but Um, Thanks, Ryan. Mike Conroy, I saw Mike a few minutes ago. Dwight McKee, I know Dwight's here as well. Where's Dwight? And Jenna Ostis. John Thomas. And alphabetically fifth is Scott Winsler. What a great slate. I mean, it's just wonderful when you see the new leadership coming in and knowing that the club is really in good stead. So again, thank you, all 6 of you, for your willingness to serve the club. It's a lot, and I appreciate that. The last thing I wanted to mention to you guys before we get started with our program is that next week, I want to remind you that we will be meeting. Tom says I'm a little too close to this. I got to get used to being a little further back. We're going to be meeting across the street at a Cade Annex facility, okay? I don't want anybody to be worried about this. We're going to have signage and folks, myself, Eric, some other folks are going to be directing you exactly where to go. So I'll just ask you to just park in your normal place as if you were coming here, and we're going to direct you to our temporary new facility. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone then. And now I will ask Susan Crowley to come up and introduce our program.
Hello, everyone. Today, our speaker is Jim O'Connell. Jim is the UF Assistant Vice President of Commercialization, leading UF Innovate, the umbrella organization over tech licensing and the Sid Martin Biotech and Hub incubators. Jim is also the Director of Tech Licensing. He works with internal and external constituents to provide strategic leadership and direction in building and capitalizing on facilities, expertise, and technology at UF. Before coming to UF, Jim served as the Director of the Office of Technology Transfer at the University of Miami. Prior to this time at Jim was the Director of the Michigan Venture Center at the University of Michigan, where he led an office that produced more than 10 venture-backed startups per year based on university technology. Jim has worked in the industry for 15 years with a focus on medical devices and has been involved in several successful startup companies and is a patented inventor. In his early career, he was a combat rescue and special operations helicopter pilot in the U.S. Air Force for 10 years. He received his MS in Engineering Management from the University of Maryland and a BS in Aeronautical Engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Please welcome Jim.
Thanks, Susan, and thanks everybody for having me here. I'm happy to be talking to you today. Let me know if I need to back up, move up. I'd be much happier if I was actually walking around. I don't know if that's going to be possible in this situation. I'm not an academic, as Susan related. I'm a business development guy and a helicopter pilot. And so I would rather not have this be a one-way 25-minute me just spew at you all this great stuff. That's why I don't have any slides. I really try to adapt these things to be engaged with the audience that is here. So please raise a hand. It'll help me. I want this to be a back and forth, not me just talking at you about what we do. Is that a wave to, I'm good? All right. So as Susan mentioned, I run UF Innovate. And as I was sitting there listening to Susan talk about all these things, my titles and all that, everyone, I won't say everyone, but I would bet most people out there have no idea what any of that means. Am I right? So simply put, my job is to take almost $1 billion a year that UF does in research and convert that into something of value for the public. And that's for the public of Gainesville, public of Alachua County, public of the world. We drive and we try to extract the value that is in all this research. And the way I put it to people is that if I was a CEO of a company and I had $1 billion in an R&D budget, that CEO damn well would think that I've got to get something out the door in terms of a product. So That's my job. That's my job. That's my job to create the environment that allows that to happen. So to do that, I call back on my experience from 10 years in corporate America, 2 different startup companies, and experience across the country to try to figure out the best way in any given environment to make that happen. So the interesting piece about Gainesville, some of the other locations I've been are Miami and Ann Arbor, Michigan. Gainesville is different because really we are out here, and the University of Florida is the only big game in town in terms of doing this kind of work. Most other environments, there are other players to participate. And the state, honestly, is more engaged in terms of these activities. Here in Gainesville, Alachua, in the state of Florida, that's not the case. So I have to create a team that develops the culture and creates the ecosystem that drives all this early stage activity. So in a simple sense, I'm converting that $1 billion a year and trying to extract as much as we can out of it for the common good of everyone here. I'll pause there and ask, and maybe plead for some questions. Sure. It is often very difficult to put a definitive ROI on it. I work very hard to do that because I'm a numbers guy. I have a degree in engineering. I want to see things quantified. I don't believe, and I'm a big believer in metrics, and I apply metrics, frankly, to my businesses as well. My businesses that I run, and I will gladly say that we are not a cost center to the university. We run in the black, even without Gatorade money that comes in, that is roughly, it's going to be north of $20 million every year that the university reinvests in its research product. Even without that, we run in the black. So to answer your question, we do look at ROI. We truly look at a return on investment and realize that because of things like the Gatorade money that's been flowing into the university, I'm allowed to spend $7.5 million on patents. And we've been doing that for decades. The patents that were invested 10 years ago, 20 years ago, are the ones that are paying off, literally paying off now. So to try to answer your question, we make big bets on lots of really scary stuff years in the future in hopes that it will pay off. And the bets that I'm benefiting and my group is benefiting, and the city of Gainesville is benefiting from the investments that were made 20 years ago. Further to that, if we look at how we try to quantify based on the companies that move through the 2 incubators that I run, the hub that is down here on 2nd Avenue Southwest, and the Sid Martin incubator up in Alachua, and I don't like throwing out these kind of whimsical numbers, but if we look at the amount of money that has flowed into Alachua County as a result of all of our companies since Sid Martin opened up 26 years ago, it's more than $12 billion. And that's not fluffy university academic grants and stuff coming in. That is money that has come in as a result of activity of the companies that started through these facilities. And that's investment, that's sales, it's top line stuff, it's real business numbers, $12 billion. So the answer is for the ROI, I don't know there's too many other organizations who can say they pulled in $12 billion in 20 years to the Alachua County. Sir.
Friendly reminder, everybody, Wesley asked me to remind you, can't hear you unless you get the microphone on Zoom.
Excuse me. Patent has a lifetime of about 20 years. So like Gatorade, is it running out of that lifetime?
Gatorade is not patented. I wish Richard and Phoebe were here there you go.
Gatorade is not patented. It lost its original patent that was filed in mid 60s. The value in Gatorade is in the brand and it's in the trademark. And so that's where the royalties are generated, is from the brand itself.
Right, and I actually love telling this story about the interface. Dr. Cade's brilliance was, he came up with the science that did this. They did try to patent it, but the truth was the marketing. He was a fantastic marketer, and the notion of creating that brand is what lasts today and provides that return. And to be clear, the university takes all the money we make from that and it gets reinvested in research. And it enables some of my patent budget and enables researchers to do work in the medical school, frankly. So it's a huge boon, and it really sets University of Florida aside from maybe 10 other universities in the country who make that kind of revenue.
Caveat, Mike Conroy. 15 years ago, when David Day was here, we were talking about tech that could inspire new manufacturing alternatives that would provide real income for people who are living here in Gainesville, particularly East Gainesville. If we could start to get something of a manufacturing base. There were discussions of companies from out of the area that would be coming here attracted to OTL and what was going on at UF. What's happened along those lines in the last 5 years? And what promise do you see OTL holds?
So the difficulty for any university, University of Florida included, in working on that space is that we really don't have the tools. We are not set up to create a manufacturing-based business. The way most of our companies come out the door is that we have a researcher over here, we've got 6,000 of them who are working on something probably federally funded to the tune of a couple $1 million. If we're lucky, they are already commercially directed. They're thinking about a product or a potential business. And we grab that usually at the late stage, and we've got a faculty member and an idea and maybe some patent, some IP portfolio, I'll call it. Then it's my job to put a management team there and to get them a place to stay and get them the tools they need, and probably bring in a little bit of talent, some people to work on this, and really take it from a faculty member doing this once in a lab to someone who if we're going to do it and make drugs, we're going to do it 1 million times over. That's a huge gap. And that's a gap the universities do not work in. That's product development. So we are not inherently at that point where we can say, hey, university faculty does something and we're going to create a job or create a company that then is going to bring in 500 manufacturing jobs. We're just not in that business. That's not the way the universities or any universities work. So the notion of anything, what our best contribution, and I will point to Alachua and everything that is happening up there. And if you haven't been up to Alachua to see the number of companies that are breaking ground, you need to go up and see, because that is how universities are supposed to do their job in terms of developing economies. And I was again talking here while we were having lunch. I'll hear the governor, I'll hear the mayor of Tampa say, we're going to create the next Silicon Valley. We should not be creating the next Silicon Valley. We should be looking at the assets that are here in Alachua County, and we have, and that was done 26 years ago with Sid Martin. Build upon those, build upon the great things University of Florida can do, which is gene therapy, and that's what's up in Alachua County. And now we are at the critical mass where we are attracting talent and companies here, not because of the University of Florida, but because of the number of companies that are up there in Alachua. That's how it works. And to your point, as we get further and further down the line, we create jobs that are really high-tech jobs. And our average, the jobs we created last year, and I've got a stat I can throw out how many we estimate we do. The average income is about $75,000. It's not a small number. These are, I won't say, these are not blue-collar jobs, but those aren't the kind of jobs that we can create. We can generally create, call them white-collar lab-based jobs. I hope that answers your question. Thanks. It does. I
would point to regeneration technologies as one, and much of Sid Martin has become viable because of OTL and the efforts that people like David and Susan too made in creating that liaison between private industry and the university. And we had at GAIN in 2006, we had somebody from the head of the director from Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle come down here and tell us how ripe Gainesville was for this kind of viability explosion that could essentially reduce poverty in this area by creating premises for viable jobs. Now, I know the university is not in the business of starting up commercial manufacturing businesses, but you certainly are in the business of attracting those interests to this area. And that's what we need to see.
So I know also one of the gaps that we have in Gainesville in this area in general is just investment, right? VC firms being willing to invest in early seed stage companies and helping them grow. I know you guys are doing a lot of work in helping to attract that type of investment to this area. Can you tell us all a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, and let me take a step back. 3/4 of the federal money of that $1 billion a year that comes in, so let's call it 750 million, is coming from National Institute of Health. It's life science. It's funding work in therapeutics and work in the medical school and the School of Pharmacy and the vet school. And those people did do what we call squishy science. And they're working on cells and making these cool advances in basic science. So that drives the activity. So 3/4 of my patents that we file are life science based. 3/4 of the startups we have are life science based. So that kind of feeds into where this whole thing goes. And what was the question? Sorry. Yep, right.
Stage companies.
So what happens then is when we go out and look for funding opportunities, venture capital funding opportunities, there's very little of that in the state of Florida. So we go to San Francisco and Boston, and we do. And there was a round last year, probably 2 years ago now, a company, we brought in $107 million in a single round to fund a company that's here in Alachua, Avanti Bio. And what that does, that establishes us a network with some of the biggest venture capitalists in the world. So it's a matter of being credibility and relationships, because each one of those kind of deals, and they're not all 107 million, some of them are 5, some of them are 10. That gives credibility to the name for the University of Florida and UF Innovate and everything else we have going on here. And if they're coming down here for one company, they may as well look at a couple others. So this is how the whole thing snowballs forward. But it's so, and looking at the people in this room, this is relationship based. And just being honest, a lot of academics, most academics don't get that business is relationship based. That when I walk into an office and I know somebody up in Boston, there's so much more credibility when I go in and have the handshake and they know that I'll say it, I get shit done. I will close the deal. We'll move it forward, as opposed to so many of the other interactions with other universities. That counts for a lot. So it's a matter of building this reputation. And it's not just my reputation. I mean, I leverage that, but I use that to build the entire premise going forward. And then I will say we are making a lot of effort now, myself and Jackson Streeter, who a lot of people probably know, to get money out of the state and also to do outreach down to, I'll say, Jupiter and Boca Raton and South Florida. And, you know, some of the interesting, I'm not a Floridian. I came here about 10 years ago now. The interesting thing about Florida, it's such a big state and we have such disparity, and we have these great opportunities in a place like Gainesville and the University of Florida to fund. And there's so much capital down in South Florida, but it doesn't get connected. And it doesn't get connected for a host of different reasons. But some of this is the reputational stuff I'm talking about now, that there are all these opportunities, and it's a matter of, I'll say, someone like myself and Jackson to go down there with some credibility. And the Jupiter opportunity for the University of Florida getting involved at Scripps is huge in terms of that. And we are already having discussions with some of the biggest privately held family offices in the world are down within 5 miles of Jupiter. So we're going to look to try to stitch that up. We're also looking for help from the state, because really the state should be playing a bigger role in this early stage. Microphone. I think they're going to want you to. Oh, I think you've got a question back there.
Yes, I've got the mic. So following up with what Mike had asked, in the interest in trying to find that economic viability to individuals who are not going to be the top of your capital focus and the gold ring, but maybe those that are more down in the silver ring. The university, I think there's a problem with our education system that we focus on the academic, and we, you know, when the kids get to college, we give them the degree and say, now go get involved in the community. Why can't the university be engaged in more interdisciplinary approaches to looking at these are problems in our community, which pretty much every community has. And it's a multidisciplinary approach, look at getting individuals to identify some of the problem solving that would make a difference in the community where they are. And with that experience, I believe those students would then be able to go anywhere else. And that would be a real leadership role that the university could provide. And to consider that they might be able to do an interdisciplinary problem solving with what would be a good industry to bring to the individuals that have the lowest education, but a belief that they have something valuable to offer. And we have left out so much of the community through public housing, not getting engaged in the education system. It goes on and on and on. And again, the university has not been involved in problem solving those things because they're the lower level of the crop. And trash is one thing. If we looked at how to deal with our trash, we need engineers to deal with recycling our trash. Do you know if anybody at the university is looking at those issues?
So I'll speak as an academic outsider. When I first got into academia at the University of Michigan, this is a different animal. People think very differently, and faculty act very differently. Most faculty think of themselves as independent contractors, and the notion of me, or I in part work for Charlie Lane, the COO, directing some faculty that you will do this, it doesn't happen. But so then, in terms of incentivizing faculty to head in that direction, any direction, there's got to be a pile of money there, is really what it comes down to. So the notion of trying to direct some faculty towards issue, it looks like I'm not answering the question.
Well, I think the opportunity for brainstorming, if you were to open up the room and say, let's get people from different disciplines to come in and, hey, what are the services provided in this community? What's missing? And if they just did a focus on housing or the lack of education at all levels, pick a problem, but have an interdisciplinary, not telling them that they have to, but I think there are individuals in pretty much every department that see things going on in this community and can contribute to solving some of these problems.
Well, I guess my response is that the faculty need to be incentivized to do that. They are taking their time. They're running their own, they see themselves as running their own little business. And if they're going to take 10%, 20% of the time and work on a problem, looks like you're not.
We have to quit separating everybody. We need to find a way for people to work and study together. We are a community, but if we're a community where people don't know who their neighbors are and don't know what everybody in this room has to offer us, we have a failure to communicate.
I can agree with that. In terms of directing the people in the academic community, if it's faculty or students, that would be part of the university leadership, frankly, is what it would come down to.
I attended a talk over at the university where they declared that artificial intelligence is going to be a focus for this North Florida especially, and that we could be the world center for artificial intelligence. It would seem to me that that would merge right in with your interests.
It does. The AI can add value. I'll say I'm an engineer. AI is a cool new term for supercomputers that can process a lot of stuff. It can solve a lot of our problems. But these are difficult things to get started, and that's what we're in the process of doing. But AI can be applied. A lot of work right now is on trying to legally access patient data, and there's a consortium actually called One Florida that that compiles in a database patient data from all over the entire state. And by doing that, and we can run problems through that data, we can actually start solving, recognizing some things that are impossible to do without AI. So that's one very tangible way that we are already starting on it. Probably the easiest thing to do out of the gate, because we already have all the data. We don't have to go hunt down the data and process it.
It's great to hear your presentation, and it's good to meet you and see one of the people behind this innovation and creativity movement that's taking place. If I have a starting pitcher who you can pretty much count on to win anywhere from 15 to 20 games a year, you're going to ride that guy. And you're going to get as many wins out of him as you possibly can. And that's what I see you doing at the University of Florida. And I'm so proud of what the University of Florida has done with taking the resources you have and developing them. And you can't expect that starting pitcher to be your home run hitter. He's got to do what he can do well. So my commendation to you and what you're doing. This is a tremendous, tremendous shot in the arm. Even though you're kind of changing the look of Southwest 2nd Avenue where my grandma lived, it's exciting. And they tore down the hospital and they didn't even put a memorial up for some of us, you know. So thank you very much for what you're doing. And my exhortation would be stay focused on what you can do well.
Well, thanks. And I'm a big believer as a business person, you got to look at your assets. Let's not imagine we're going to be Silicon Valley. Let's really take a hard look at what we have in terms of value. And that, frankly, is where we're going to get the genuine growth. And that's what we did. We looked at gene therapy, we doubled down on it, and that's what's paying us off in spades right now. Thanks.
Very excited to hear your presentation. I've lived here since July of 1972, so I would be interested. I and some of us in this room have a certain perception about the receptivity of our community to jobs. So I'm interested, if you could comment on your perception of the differences between Ann Arbor, Miami, and Alachua County.
For jobs. You mentioned jobs. Ann Arbor, we're done. We're good.
Got some feedback.
Me?
Not you.
Ann Arbor, very different because we're 30 minutes from GM and Ford. So different dynamic, a bunch of, Toyotas there. So in terms of University of Michigan, while it's bigger than the University of Florida, it was not the only game in town. And that diversity in the community really creates a very different dynamic. So that's one distinct difference. Miami, huge urban area. We'll put it this way, they have a different way of transacting business down there that I don't necessarily agree with. So one of the reasons I was happy to move to Gainesville. So then the role of University of Miami in that ecosystem is again different because it's a small player in a very, there are people down there, let's say specifically in the biotech space, that just dominate and control the market and makes it very difficult to get biotechs launched down in Miami. I'll contrast that when I've been talking about Alachua and biotech up in Alachua, and may have some of the biotech CEOs. I am now hearing complaints from what we think of as our company CEOs that there's a shortage of trained individuals. And that's from high school graduates to 2-year degrees to 4-year degrees, master's, PhD, postdoc, all along that entire continuum. I know because what's happening now is there's been a salary escalation up there, which is great for the people who start to move from company to company. And frankly, as a community, that's what we want. We want the demand to be there. But I've started to work more with Santa Fe in an effort to try to become part of the workforce development. So when I think about jobs in Alachua County, I think we need to do a better job, frankly, at the high school stage to get people prepared mentally and education-wise to take on roles in these jobs. And right now I have CEOs seriously considering automating their processes because they can't find enough good people to do the work. No kidding serious. I will drop $10 million on that tomorrow. So help me solve that problem. Seems like we have a need on both sides.
Yeah, good presentation. I would really appreciate if you would talk about East Lansing instead of Ann Arbor. Just let you know, say go green. I went to Michigan State, but that's okay.
So
Now-
this is the same problem with Tallahassee.
I'm not gonna attack you today on that, but my comment, two comments. I think it's really impressive how you went to corporate world, military, and academic, and I could relate to you. I did my PhD at University of Florida. I'm in nonprofit plus my experience. It's totally different perspective, and try to have these people together, understanding academic and your experience. Sometimes there's a disconnect, and it just depends how you were raised. So my question is, especially now, is this, how do you make, like, I graduated 6 years ago from University of Florida, and now I came to the community such as Rotary. I find myself, I was in a bubble as a student. And so if I feel like that, how are we, the relationship of the university to the community in a general sense, that the thing they do, I think that's what one of the colleagues was trying to get at, is we could do it through philanthropy, we could do it through, obviously, if there's business and job. So explain that relationship. And I totally understand it from academic, because what we see is just academic. Sorry, sometimes we don't see the nonprofit. Nothing against all that. That's one thing. Also, could you describe the relationship of NIH, University of Florida, and the faculty in these individuals who are having patents overall? Because if it is a good product, I'm not going to put Dr. Cade under the bus here, but if it is a good product like Gatorade, the relationship, the marginal profit, who goes to who discover who, hopefully peaceful divorce, because if it is a funding project by NIH and it become a good patent, who has what right, and without disadvantage someone? Thank you.
Sure. So are we running out of time? I'll answer the question. Right. So kind of a two-part question. Don't want to get into the details of too much of the details. The answer is that through the Bayh-Dole Act of Birch Bayh and Bob Dole in 1980, federal act. Before that point, universities, when there's federally sponsored work, the federal government owned the rights that came through any patents. Universities did not, and those rights generally reverted to the federal government. Federal government's terrible at doing business, so they really very little happened. Birch Bayh and Bob Dole said, we're going to change that. So they said any university that takes on that grant is the grantee. They are now going to be the owners of the intellectual property that comes out of that. So that's what we do. We leverage that. We get federal money comes in, gets invested. We pay for the patents, but we are the owners. University of Florida Research Foundation is the owner of every piece of intellectual property that comes out of the University of Florida. So how does that go in terms of, we can sell it, I sell it. We do 260 deals a year, and we sell it, depends on the market, and depends on where it's going. We've talked a lot about life science. You know, typical deal structure will be something where we'll take 5% equity in a company. We'll have a royalty rate in therapeutics, and in that kind of market, it's going to be between 2 and 4%. We'll have milestone payments like any other company would have and get payments on that. But of course, we don't get any royalties unless somebody makes sales. And the reality of sales is that it's going to take 13 years for a therapeutic to get to market. So we're betting patent money way up front. And frankly, we lose 9 out of 10 times. The difference, just like a venture capitalist, is when we hit on that 10th one, we hit big. So that's roughly the breakdown. And if we, you know, it's the same on the equity side. We will occasionally get a payoff, but it's actually rare for us to get a payoff on the equity side. So I don't know if that helps answer your NIH question. The other question that I'll try to wrap up on is that community-wise, my team is engaged. We are inherently, our job is outward facing, trying to engage with startups in the community, big pharma industry across the world. We are outward looking. we are much more outward looking than probably any other part of the university. But it's all industry based. It's faculty based. It's not students. We are looking for companies and to engage company capital. The rest of the university, I agree. I think there is a role for that to be there. It's a question of, how is the university going to make that part of its culture? And I'm working in my own little space. Like I mentioned, we're trying to get more engaged with Santa Fe on the workforce side to try to bring that together. But it's very business focused. It really is from my shop, because that's where I can apply some leverage. And we're trying, but I agree. I agree there should be a whole community approach.
Jim, thank you for your talk this afternoon. I knew this would be fascinating stuff when you and I kind of chatted before the meeting. I knew we certainly have an audience that cares a lot about really what I just consider economic development. The term economic viability was used, and your office as director of the Office of Technology, University of Florida Technology and Commercialization, you are right in that space. So thank you for a very informative talk to us today, and to commemorate this talk and to thank you for being here. We have a Rotary four-way test coin. The four-way test, Jim, is something that each of us holds ourselves to in everything we think, say, or do. We're all, in general, we're all business people of some regard, or we certainly have personal and business relationships, and this is something that we hold ourselves to. And it's actually a Rotary International four-way test. And it is, we ask, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and good friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? So Jim, thank you again for being here today, and you are welcome to attend as a guest anytime. Wild Game Feast sponsorship chair Jason Shank gave me a quick text a few minutes ago, asked me just to remind everyone that this Friday is the final date to become a sponsor and be included in t-shirts and all of the sponsorship items. So if you're thinking about sponsoring, get in touch with Jason right away so we can get you in there. All right, and I have got the last three digits of our Rotary Reading Safari 50/50 drawing. The last three digits are 270. Thank you, everyone, for making Rotary a part of your week today, and we'll see you next week.